actually very, very interesting. Because the Gemara says that yesho hanotzri was killed by the Sanhedrin. There was a Bezdin Shalchav Gimel. They gave him Mises Bezdin. The reason it's interesting is because that's not the Messiah of the Notzrim. The Notzrim have a different Messiah. The Notzrim's Messiah is that Yeshe HaNotzri was crucified. He was killed by the Roman governor of Judea at the time, whose name was Pontius Pilate, and he was, right, we know how he was killed. But the Yidden bore responsibility for his death because allegedly it was done via nepotism that the Chachamim had the Sanhedrin together with the Romans. That the Yidden were having tzaras from Yeshe HaNotzri, can move on, and they somehow used protection that they had to get the Roman officer, Pontius Pilate, to kill Yeshe in the way the Romans used to kill people, which was crucifixion. So the Gemara says that he was given Mises Bezdin, Erev Pesach, with the Baskal, a Braisa, right? The Gemara is discussing it in light of the diak that the Gemara made, Lafanavin, made Karaloi, Leisachma, Leisachasalav. He was given an ordinary Mises Bezdin, which is not the Messiah of the Notzrim. Okay, so why is that a problem? The reason it's interesting is because the Yidden had suffered so much tzaras over the fact that the Notzrim believed that the Yidden are responsible for the death of Yeshe HaNotzri. And really, the whole responsibility was as Agrub, that they have this scene where Rabbi Gamliel is standing there at the time that Yeshe is being killed, and he's egging on Pontius Pilate, and for that, tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of Yidden were killed in pogroms over the last 2,000 years. All because of the fact that Yidden bear some responsibility in their eyes in the death of Yeshe HaNotzri. So what do we do in the Talmud Bavli? Well, we've had so much tzaras, Ravina Ravashi, 500 years later, they wrote a Gemara, and the Gemara says that, who killed Yeshe HaNotzri? No, you think we're only responsible, Garama de Garama, this is Dina de Garmi? No, we killed him. He was given Mises Bezdin. He was given Mises, and really it would have been like Sachma, like Sachasalav. It just so happened he was a Karv Lamalchus, so he had a. How could you even make sense of a Gemara like this? And the truth is that Rabbi Chilmi Paris, in his very famous debate against the Notzrim in France in the year 1240, he argued in front of King Louis, the King of France. He said that I want you to know that the Yeshe HaNotzri that's mentioned in the Gemara, that you keep on giving the Yidden tzaras about. How could you speak of Yeshe this way? It's such a disrespect. You have the wrong guy. It's not the same Yeshe HaNotzri. Your Yeshe HaNotzri, it says in your Sifrei Minos, was killed by the Romans. He was crucified. Read the Gemara. This is a different Yeshe HaNotzri. He was given Mises Bezdin. It's not the same Yeshe HaNotzri. And the truth is that he proved it from other Gemaras as well. The Gemara says in the Sechta Soita, just mention one, Soita Mem Zayin Mem Aleph, another well-known Gemara. The Gemara over there is discussing that after Yanei HaMelech killed all the Chachamim, all the Talmidei Chachamim, so there were two Gedolei Atanom that survived this massacre. Number one was Shimon ben Shatta. He survived, the Gemara says, because he was Yanei HaMelech's brother-in-law. He was Yanei's wife, the queen's brother, and she saved him. And Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia. Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia had escaped to Alexandria Shal Mitzrayim, and that's where he survives the war. And the Gemara says that Shimon ben Shatta sends a message to Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia, basically telling him that it's safe to come home. Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia understood the message. He's on his way home. We'll pick it up at this point. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yeshua ben Prachia is on his way back to Yerushalayim. He stops off together with one of his Talmidim by a Balach Sanya. And when he came to this Balach Sanya, so this woman saw who Reb Shua ben Prachia was. He's this big Chacham. So she gave him a lot of kavod, and he was very happy. He was very makir type. So the Gemara says that Kamishtabach Kama Noach Sanyazu. So Reb Shua ben Prachia turns to his Talmud and he says, wow, how beautiful is this Balas Achsanya because of the cover that she's giving us. So this Talmud turns to Rabbi Shua ben Prachia. He says, Rebbe, you really think she's so beautiful? Hey, now, truth is, look at her eyes. No, her eyes aren't so nice. Rabbi Shua ben Prachia said, this is what you thought I meant when I said she's beautiful? I didn't mean physically. I meant her meisim, the way she took care of us, the way she was mechabed us. Says the Gemara, Apik Arba Meya Shefuri. Rabbi Shua ben Prachia took out 400 shofars, Vishamte, and he put this Talmud into Cherem. Kol yoyma asal kamei. Every day, this Talmud would come to Rabbi Shua ben Prachia to ask him mechila v'lei kiblei, and he wasn't asking. Yoyma chadav kakari kriyishma. One day, Rabbi Shua ben Prachia was reading kriyishma. Asal kamei came to ask him mechila, and says the Gemara, have a bedaiti lekbulei. Really, Rabbi Shua ben Prachia at that time was going to say machalach, machalach, machalach. But Achvile Biyadi was in the middle of Kriyishma, so he couldn't respond. So he made like a little motion with his finger. So far, this Talmud thought midchadachile, that he was again telling him that I'm not moichel you. Says the Gemara, he said enough. You know what? I asked my Rebbe enough enough times, he still doesn't want to be moichel me. What am I supposed to do? Azal, he left. Zokaf leveinasa, polcha. He created an avodah zarah, which is a euphemism for an entire religion, and the rest is history. The Gemara says, Reb Shua ben Prachi went to his Talmud, and he said, Chazor bach, amalei kach mekublani memchok lachoite, umachti es harabim, ema speaking b'yodei las tshuva. I can't do tshuva anymore, because I heard it from you. I heard it in your share. You said, kalachoite, umachti es harabim, ema speaking b'yodei las tshuva. I was already a machti es harabim, and at this point, there's nothing I could do. And the rest of the story is that this Gemara is yesho hanotzri. The Gemara for Yerzois, that you see from here that when it comes to giving someone teichacha, you always have to be merachik the person with your left hand and be mekarev the person with your right hand. Because Reb Shua ben Prachi, the Gemara says, was merachik his Talmud b'shtei yodayim, and look at what happened. What happened was yesho hanotzri. And person, you have to work on that balance. It's one of three things the Gemara says. You always have to. The smile should be daicha, and the yamin should be mekarev. Said Rabbi Chilmi Paris in his debate again in front of King Louis. He told him yesho hanotzri. The Gemara has, together with Rabbi Shua ben Prachi. If you know Jewish History 101, when did Rabbi Shua ben Prachi live? He lived right after the story of Hanukkah. He lived about 150 years before the yesho hanotzri that the Noitzrim worship lived. So he said, it's not the same person. I don't know what you're talking about. Number one, I have a Gemara, Sanhedrin, and Gibel Amalf, that he was given Mises Bezdin. You believe he was crucified. Number two, I have him together with Rabbi Shua ben Prachia. It's 150 years earlier. It's not the same person. You don't have the right person. The quote that supposedly Rabbi Chilmi Paris told the king was, he said, just like not all Louis are king of France, not all yeshos are yesho hanotzri. So it's true, there's yesho hanotzri that's mentioned in the Gemara, but it's not the same person. But the emes is the Ramban, in his famous debate, which was in the year 1263 in Barcelona, Spain, in front of the king of Spain. So that's a famous vikuach. It's printed in the Kisvei Ramban, in the Moised Rav Kook's Kisvei Ramban. You can read the entire vikuach, come out word for word. There's a transcription of the vikuach. So over there, the Ramban took a different approach, and the Ramban was masking that the yesho hanotzri that's mentioned in the Gemara is yesho hanotzri, and he took. But the question then is, it begs itself, how do you understand that? If the yesho hanotzri is like the Ramban, so bishleima, right, with the thumbs, according to Rabbi Chilmi Paris, okay, it's not shver. It's a different yesho hanotzri. But according to the Ramban, how do you understand it? How do you understand Pashup Shah? Why would we have in our Messiah? Wouldn't it have made more sense to edit it? At the very least, let it stim with it. It doesn't make sense. So I once heard from a big anti-missionary. He said that it could be, it was done Badafka this way. Why? For someone who needs to make the argument that Rabbi Chilmi Paris made. Meaning, it's counterintuitive. It's reverse psychology. The Chachamim Badafka manipulated the story, Kaviyachal, in a way. And you have to understand the level of Pekuach Nefesh that was at stake over here. Just read the history. It's mind-blowing. Right? What happened after Rabbi Chilmi Paris' debate in France in the year 1240? 4 years later, they burnt the Talmud Bavli. They burnt the Talmud Bavli in France. It was a result of that. After the Ramban's Vikuach in Spain, that's when the Ramban was forced to leave Spain. He was forced to make Aliyah. He didn't have terrible tsaras. So you know what they did? They dafka made this yesho hanotzri be killed by Bezin. For this reason, they did it so it should look like it wasn't the same yesho hanotzri. Meaning, really, the Ramban is tiny. It was yesho. Of course, this is the yesho hanotzri. A different yesha, it's the yesho hanotzri. But the Chachamim purposely, we have it with Rabbi Shua ben Prachi. It wasn't Rabbi Shua ben Prachi. It was really somebody else. And we have him being killed by, he really wasn't killed by Bezdin. But it could be these things were all done in a way so people should think. So the Noitzrim, so that you should be able to make the argument that Rabbi Chilmi Paris made. Either way.